Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Penny Lane podcast. In today's episode, we have Sound Trading Psychology. Sean is a trader, licensed psychotherapist, and trading coach. We discuss understanding the psychology behind your trades, managing your fight, flight, or freeze impulses, and much more surrounding mental analysis. Thank you to our sponsor, Last Bottle Wines, for supporting the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and review if you enjoy.
Hello, Sean. Welcome to the Penny Lane podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And Bofo's back.
Hello.
Hello.
Bofo.
Bofo, the other, last night, I guess, I had a podcast with Ellis, and I said, Ellis, I haven't seen you in a month of Sundays. And then I was like, oh, is that just a really Southern thing? And he was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're Southern.
I've still never heard that. A month of Sundays?
A month of Sundays? Did you not listen to country music in the 90s?
Well, of course I did. But
Sean,
what is that a reference
have you heard
to?
it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank God. Where are you from?
I'm from New York. I'm from the Northeast in New York.
Okay.
That's just something like my grandfather would say.
Totally. Hadn't seen you in a month of
Yeah.
Sundays. It's like old people, but I thought it was old Southern people. But it turns out...
What does that say? Like
it just
30
means,
weeks?
Yes. Well, it
Okay.
just means I haven't seen you in a really long time. But, like, that's what I was saying on the episode last night, was it must be about 30 weeks, like a month.
Okay. Well, when you first said that, I was like, well, a month has like 4 Sundays in it. So like 4 Sundays. Haven't seen you in 4 Sundays. But I'm tracking with you now. Makes sense.
All right, cool. Well, month is Sundays. I'm glad I'm going to keep saying it, I guess, every episode, and we'll just see if it hits. Well, today is Thursday, June 9th. We were talking about it's 3 p.m. SPY's currently tanking. It looks like it finally broke out of that consolidation range, which we've all been waiting for all week, like
Ugh.
paint drying.
Absolutely.
So we're just waiting for the CPI data tomorrow, which maybe got leaked. I don't know why. I just stopped. I did go back to just trading Apple because I was really all over the place. So I stopped trading at 11 o'clock today. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. Sean, you mentioned it. Have you been watching SPY all day? Do you know?
No, I just came back. I was probably out of here by noon Eastern, so I'm not sure what happened.
I know what happened.
Ooh.
It kind of acted like it was putting in a range day, and it just kept testing the bottom level on the range. Popped back up through VWAP, and then came down, tested the range again, and finally it's dumping down through. Which is a little bit... I feel like we've had a few range days turn trend days this week, which is not what I'm used to.
What's VIX doing?
Good question. It's probably going up. Yeah, it's ramping. It's 25.85 right now.
There we go. All right. Well, I'm glad to be out of
UVX
I'm glad to be out of the range.
Yeah. UVXY is it's over 13. So.
Well, Sean, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. I think that somebody recommended you to me.
Oh, yeah?
Does that ring true to you for how we got linked up?
You popped up in my DMs and yes, yeah, that probably is how it happened.
Yeah, someone recommended you as a guest. Well,
see if they
we
were
are
right.
super, super into trading psychology here at
Awesome.
the PLP. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I've been a psychotherapist for almost 19 years now, and I started to get into... So I started in psychotherapy, general mental health stuff. I became a trauma specialist. I got a little bit burnt out with that, so I started doing some performance psychology in private practice on the side, which kind of sparked my interest in what I'm doing now. I went back, worked for a while at a university and got a private practice going. And, when I was at the university, really what got me into trading was I would see these colleagues of mine in their 50s, 60s talking about renting. and just hearing financial stress, and I'm thinking, I don't want this to be me. So I was like, well, how am I going to make some other money? So I got into it from that. Really fell in love with it. Fell in love with the psychological game of it, and I've now been very active trader for 6 years, full time for 4, and doing coaching psych for a little less than 2.
Fascinating.
Or trade psych coaching.
We just interviewed Jared Tindler. Do you know who that is?
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I signed up to work with him.
Shit, it's a big act to follow. Oh, can I swear? Sorry.
Sure. No. We accept all language as long as it's not offensive. Yeah, so I signed up to work with him, and I have had one session and just signed up for my second one. It's just fascinating. My biggest takeaway from the first session with him was he told me that I'm not personally going to be satisfied how I trade unless I use my own voice and my own ideas. Like, there's nothing about it that will really ring true to me. Just following other people's calls, methods, I gotta just do it. And I like that advice every day.
Yeah, I think that's...
Wait, what'd you say, Bofo?
I like that advice for you. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, not just for you, just for anybody. I mean, not even let's say you're following someone else's call and you still know what you're doing. You can still let that influence you in ways that are bad. Since I trade with people on voice every day, that's been a really big learning curve for me as well. As it's got to still just be my trade.
Right. And whenever I take someone else's trade, yesterday I took a Nike trade that was not my trade. It was somebody else's trade who I respect, and I took it and I lost on it, and it was so much worse. I mean, he was right. And he got it just from listening to me for really 2 hours because we had the podcast. But anyway, I'm a big fan of getting...
So why is that important to you? To make it your own?
We were talking about the podcast, and then I'm also an artist, and I feel it took us a while to get there, but I feel like my value as a person comes from my voice or point of view, and that's why I think my paintings are valuable, because it took 25 years to develop a style that is now 100% mine and authentic. And then I think the worth of the podcast is I had to convince myself that I had a voice and a point of view in the trading world. And he said, until you can do that with trading and convince yourself that your voice is valuable to you, then that's what's going to be the thing.
It's great advice. It's people have to do what's meaningful to them and be aware that they're doing what's meaningful to them. Otherwise, what's going to motivate you through the hard times? Nietzsche said there's a he who has a why to live for can bear most anyhow. And, we have to know our why, what our whys are. And I use that a lot in trade coaching in kind of a general sense to help motivate behavior change. And so you're actively aware of when you're moving towards what's important to you and doing what's important to you, and when you're actually moving away from doing what's important to you. And that awareness will help change problematic behavior.
Very
Does that
interesting.
Make sense?
Yeah. I have been, through the podcast, given access to basically any trader that I want access to. And I've been given access to every room, every convenience, every edge, everything that a trader could have, every tool I have gotten access to.
Yeah.
And I'm still not doing great. And I know it is frustrating the hell out of people, because they're like, we're helping. We gave you all the help. But I can't take help.
Right.
That's not going to do it for me.
Yeah, you have some counter-dependent traits, I'm guessing.
I've never heard that phrase before, but it's really ringing true.
I had a feeling it might.
Yeah. My manifesting mantra is I can do this on my own.
Oh my, yeah.
Like a psychopath.
As long as it works for you, who cares?
I guess it's not totally working, but I'd so much rather make $50 a day doing it my own way than $1,000 a day doing it somebody else's.
I mean, that's part of a rich life, right? Not to sound too corny, but riches aren't just cash.
Totally. So, you said something in the very beginning of your journey that was really interesting to me. What was the very first part of it?
I was in my career.
Psychotherapist?
Yeah.
So yeah, general mental health treatment, like psychotherapy in the community.
Oh, because of
and
trauma.
Then trauma work. Yeah.
That's what was interesting to me. Have you experienced trauma? Is that why you wanted to get involved in it, or was there some other aspect?
You know what's kind of crazy? Yes, I mean, I'm a therapist. Shit happened. My mom died when I was a kid. There's the answer. That's why I'm a therapist. So yeah, I'm aware. I'm familiar with trauma. But what's really interesting is, I developed an interest in it. I got into it. Was in this trauma, co-occurring trauma and addictions clinic. Really, like hardcore stuff. And while I was working there, I had a near-death experience, and I got PTSD.
Okay.
It was such a fucking kick in the teeth.
Expand on that as much as you want to.
Yeah.
Basically, I became aware of a genetic heart condition that I didn't know I had, and I became aware of it by kind of getting lightheaded and my heart going ballistic, and then I went to an ER. And next thing I know, they are stopping my heart. There's a guy on top of me pounding my chest. Pounding my chest. I'm off to a hospital to have a procedure done on my heart, and basically they burned off some extra nerves that I had on my heart, and like that, it was fine. This is a window of like 6 hours. However, it was effing terrifying, and I'll tell you, I do not recommend being alive and having your heart stop. It's really painful and really off-putting when you hear your heart and start back up. Yeah. So
how long
it messed
ago was
with
this?
Me. 10 years. That was 10 years ago. I was probably it was 12. I was 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got PTSD. So how did that manifest itself?
Pretty much classic ways. But what was tricky was I knew all the damn all the good trauma therapists were my friends, so I couldn't get therapy from them. So I'd like find someone that was good and get some help for it. So
Wait,
that
why
was
can't
really
you
the
get
tricky part.
Therapy from your friends?
Boundaries, basically. Like it's like this: if you and I are say you and I become close friends, we talk all the time, blah blah blah, and you decide you want to see a therapist. If you came to see me, and we were friends, I would lose objectivity immediately. I might not be able to say the certain things I want to say, or even like see the things I want to see, because I'm biased. I'm tainted. It's the ultimate bias you don't want, relative to trading. They wouldn't be able to help me, basically.
So this is in terms of trading, not necessarily in terms of trauma, or both?
This is in terms of trauma. And I just mean, like, the bias would ruin the therapy the same way bias can ruin trading.
Huh.
Totally.
Okay.
When my best friend asks me about stuff, I'm not giving her anything objective. I've got 25 years of history. I'm like,
she's right. Her partner's an asshole.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
This is human nature. We're going to comfort each other. And my job is not to. I'm not a pom poms kind of therapist. My job is not to make you feel better necessarily. My job is to make you better at feeling. and better at dealing with emotions and stuff. But I'm not a sunshine and roses kind of guy.
Totally.
Irrational exuberance? When it comes to killer wine at drastically low prices, 30 to 70% off retail and free shipping, we live for that here at Last Bottle Wines. Whether you went long or short on GameStop, you'll need a glass of something terrifically tasty, and we've got the goods. Last Bottle is a daily wine site based in Napa, California. One wine every day at Black Swan event prices, usually 30 to 70% off until poof, it's gone. Whether you're a pound-the-table type, think ultra-crisp, quaffable Sauvignon Blanc, or a dividend aristocrat, Burgundy, or Napa Cab, there simply is no better place to buy wine on the web, and they always have free shipping. Last Bottle has a deal just for Penny Lane listeners. Use promo code PENNY10 to save 10% on your next order with Last Bottle. The code is good for one order and one order only.
That is, I have had high blood pressure my whole life, and I dealt with it a lot when I was pregnant. And I actually am in therapy right now because of having a fear over my heart. Like, it's a scary fear. It's really scary, and we've sort of whittled it down to like being afraid of death. But I can like twist a certain way, and my heart will beat kind of fast, and it just rockets me back to like so much like. Oh, I mean, I was in the Mayo Clinic for a week. It was so much stuff, and it's just one little beat, and I'm immediately back.
That is shockingly familiar to me, because the thing that gave me PTSD was this crazy stuff that happened with my heart. So for like 4 years, I was aware every day, every heartbeat, I was aware of it. Everyone. Yep. Everyone. Like I'd be sitting here talking to you, and I would be aware of every heartbeat. I haven't heard my heart in forever. I don't think about it, but for years it was like every sound. So that and that's a type of trauma, and medical trauma like that. I guess we're digressing, but it's very tricky because it's that physiological, visceral. It's beyond cognition. It's beyond being talked out of it or like rationally thinking through it. It's a problem set in the nervous system. It needs to be dealt with in the nervous system. And that's kind of my big thing with trading psychology is really digging in and looking at it at a nervous system level, because that's all that matters ultimately.
My biggest trigger was laying in bed at night, because if you lay on your side, like I find that I could feel my heart more. And there were nights where I would just like wake up my husband, and I would be crying, and I'd be like, my heart feels funny. And he's like, babe, I think we've been through this before. Like, I think you're okay. And I was like, but it just feels funny. So I'd go sit in the shower, because in the shower, I couldn't feel my heart, and try to like calm it down. But it fucks you up big time, because you need your heart.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And your coping was really wise, because what you were doing there when you sat in that shower, you were all that surface area being exposed to a stimulus, the water pouring over it. It overwhelmed your nervous system and took the attention away from your heart, and it calmed you down. That was really smart.
Also, the water's hot, so your heart beats faster. But I could then attribute it. I could be like, well, I am hot. My heart is beating faster. And I could get myself to go to sleep, because I had a way to blame my fast heartbeat or whatever. Anyway,
EMDR. We might even talk about it, but EMDR will solve that quick.
Oh, good. Yeah. I had it even today. I was doing my trading, and I was in a little bit heavier than I wanted to be, because I had to average down, and I could like feel it, and I was like, whew, we got to talk ourselves through, like, your heart is okay, you are okay. If this trade goes against you, you're okay. The market can't hurt you. It's like a constant, you're not in danger. You're not in danger.
And do you have that? Yeah. Do you have that happen during positive and negative experiences when they're intense related to trading? Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Like my heart, and then my head, and then I feel like I might pass out. It's a whole, Bo, welcome to the inside of my mind.
I'm enjoying this.
I don't get to talk to that many people who have had heart things. But
terrible.
It's a weird. So also, my dad died. So that there's like a dead dads club. I don't know if you know that or not, but
I'm in a dead moms club.
You're in the dead moms club. There's a dead dads club, but I think there's also like a heart trauma club. You're like, if you know, you know.
There's a condition, I think it's called supraventricular fibrillation or something, where the treatment for it is this drug. Oh God, I wish I could think of the name. It starts with an A. I had it that day. It's the stuff that stops your heart. And this disease, basically the top half of your heart will go ballistic. The bottom will stay relatively normal. It can kill you. But that drug and taking it is so traumatic that people with that disease risk their life to not take the drug to get past the episodes without that terrifying drug, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
I mean, that's how awful the drug is. I can't think of what it's called. I know it starts with an A.
Yeah, my brother. So my heart problem, this is horrible that this happened to me, but all my heart problems developed from like a sensitivity to Adderall.
Oh, no shit.
Hey kids, stay off the Adderall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to go to the Mayo Clinic because the stimulus was just so bad for my heart, and my resting blood pressure was like 175 over 120, and I was 20 years old and like a normal weight and they couldn't figure out why, and it took a week at the Mayo Clinic with like every heart test you can get done, and then finally they were like, you are like allergic to Adderall, I guess, or
oh shit.
Yep. And then it's damaged my heart. I mean, I'm still having complications from it. But my brother had the same thing. And he also got the high blood. He had all the same effects from it. And he just had an incident where he had to get a heart cath. That's going to leave some lasting, whatever. Yeah.
Especially
it's gonna be tough.
What circumstances it was put in under. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an emergency or not, or things like that.
It was an emergency. He did a stress test, then an emergency.
That's a whole other level.
Heart cath. And it came after like, it just came after a life, it was a life situation that caused.
Yeah, he was, so you're already jacked up on adrenalines and cortisol and stuff. And then they're like, by the way, we have to put this, this foreign device in your heart so you don't die.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And we're going to keep you
so
awake.
So that just pours in harder. And it should pour in. Like, you should be scared. That's just, survival. But that adds up to a hell of an experience and a lasting one, unfortunately.
Totally.
And that's relative to trading too. I mean, we forget that, sitting all day or sitting part of the day and staring and with all this attention and focus, we release tons of adrenaline. We build up problematic states of mind and states of being, and we just pound ourselves on top of it and make it worse and worse and worse.
I read on Twitter about 6 months ago, I have no idea who it was, but they said 7 years ago I was sitting in my chair trading and I had a heart attack in the middle of trading. And he's like fine now, I guess, and he was like, I totally had to change the way I trade. That's very triggering to me too. Like, I'm just gonna like voluntarily put myself in this very stressful situation. It's all just layers of stuff.
Yeah. There is a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and a lot of traders have no don't even know what we need to be looking at to take care of to make ourselves, last in the business or do well in the business or anything, because we don't look at it through a psychological eye, and we need to.
Totally.
I mean, this is a psych game. The market it's whatever you want to say about it. It's rigged. It's all this. It's all that. It's a psychological game, and we have to take good care of our brains.
Totally. I think honestly that's kind of why I'm like given all the experts and all the rooms and all the tools and all of this stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's not going to help me. Like, I know how to trade. I know how, there's no other thing that I can add to my chart that's going to make me know how to trade. There's no person that's going to help me. It's just me and this chart. And and me. And I'm obsessed. I'm like addicted to that idea of like, you have everything you need. But
and the culprit is the amygdala, because it's actually you, the chart, and your amygdala. And
tell me about that.
That's the shooting match. So, our nervous system have you heard of fight, flight, or freeze?
Yeah.
So fight, flight, and freeze is something that's happens to us a lot. Fight, flight, or freeze is a leftover evolutionary piece of psychology, and this stuff is important to know. The same way you have to understand market fundamentals and basics before you trade, you need to understand evolutionary psychology and psychology to some extent before you trade, because otherwise you're just setting yourself up to fail. So one of the things we do, because of history and the fact that it's only been a couple hundred years that we haven't really needed our survival instincts as much as we've needed them historically, that we tend to oversee danger. We see danger when it's not there. So we're reacting a lot, and we're going into what they call a sympathetic nervous system state. That's fight, flight, or freeze. And we want to stay out of that. All of us do it all the time. Someone can call you a name and you go into that state. You can stub your toe and go into that state. You can have a crazy thing happen with your heart and go deeply into that state. There's a lot of ways that we get put in there, but when we do, and our amygdala is what puts us in there, which is sort of our emotional brain, and it's the fastest part of the brain. It's the most reactive, and it puts us in that state. And then what it does is it shuts down our prefrontal cortex, the front of our brain, and we lose access to all the stuff we know as a trader, our TA, our, whatever it is, how we trade, all that knowledge, that executive knowledge, even like your sense of confidence and competence and things like that. It's all stored up here. And that when that thing goes offline, that's when you have those trades when they're over, or have those days when they're over, and you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? Yeah. And the answer is actually pretty simple, and it's you weren't, because you were in a sympathetic state. It took over, and you left. You were gone, and you were basically surviving the day versus trading the day. You were surviving that that market versus fighting that market or winning in that market, or however you want to put it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have been like laying in bed at night thinking about how I'm coming up with this new kind of trading concept that's just for me. And my idea is that I actually have this like bucket here. I'm going to show you. So I like put this bucket up on my wall. So my idea is like every day there's tons of trades out there, and I'm just going to like handpick my good trades and fill this bucket up with like my trades for me. Anyway, I'm working my way through this idea. And so I'm laying in bed and I'm like, okay, well, if I don't lose more than $100 per trade, then I can say that's a good trade, and I can fill this bucket up with all good trades. It's not like that's the only rule I have to stick to, is you cannot lose more than $100. I thought about it all night. I thought about it all morning. I took the first trade, held it down to like $250 and was like, but it hasn't like rejected. I mean, immediately. I can't even like stick to the one freaking thing. But all day long, I can like rationalize all these things I'm going to do to really kill it.
You're a perfectionist?
Yeah. I would say like a creative perfectionist, not like a type A.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird kind of perfection.
High standards.
Very high personal, very high. But like my like living room is a mess right now. Like that kind of stuff doesn't. Yep. It's whatever. But I'm not going to let myself down.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting plan. I think being selective with trades is really important. I think most of us overtrade, and there are, ways to find just a few good trades you can even go heavier on if you have enough conviction. And I like that idea. I think as long as you don't beat yourself up if you do go over $100 or whatever, then then it's just fine.
Oh, so many mental tricks.
Yeah, there are.
Just to keep at it. Yeah.
That's tough, though. I feel like when I have too many rules like that eventually sticking to that rule becomes more important than the thing it's supposed to help me do, Right. And so, maybe that your example, Blaine, isn't a great example, but like if I'm going for a percentage win rate, or if I'm going for a green streak, or if I'm going for, whatever, eventually like sticking to that streak becomes more important than the reason I made the rule. And then I end up screwing it up for that reason,
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. But there were so many other rules that I broke. I made the rule of like, I can't trade till 9:45. Well, usually my best trades are at 9:35 to 9:50. So like cutting that rule out, I don't know. I was like, let me stick to one thing, and then couldn't even do that.
Continuing with that sort of focus on, the nervous system and staying out of fight, flight, or freeze. A lot of these rules that we have, a lot of these, the things that go on intraday, we can really take care of a lot of it with trading mindfully, with being aware of kind of our values and what we're doing intraday, by making sure that we're taking steps to keep ourselves out of fight, flight, or freeze, because then we don't necessarily need all these rules, because when we're not in that state, we have access to our full faculties. We have access to our wisdom. We have access to perspective. And when the further we get sucked into the chart, it's like this. When the chart's here, there's a problem. I can't see much else. But if the chart's here, this still might be in the forefront, but I can, there's other things I can see around it. And being mindful and doing certain behavioral things throughout the day helps maintain that perspective, and I think helps make rules less, not less, you need to have rules, but less difficult to follow, and probably you don't need as many because you are in a more regulated state. You're not, gritting your teeth and swearing and reversing and all that kind of shit.
This reminds
it's just
me,
essential.
This reminds me of something that Jared said about, we were talking about rules, or we weren't, you were. You were talking about rules, and he was making the point that a lot of the rules are Band-Aids. So like, a Band-Aid is good for now. Like, use the Band-Aid, but you really need to be figuring out where that wound is coming from. Like, you don't want to just live with a Band-Aid forever.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Last night or the night before, I was working with a client individually, and this person had been in a group that I did, or a class that I did, and where I teach like how to do all this stuff intraday to keep yourself out of fight, flight, or freeze, to keep yourself in a parasympathetic nervous state, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't do it. Most traders don't. Getting these guys to do it is such a, like, people are skeptical. They don't feel immediate results. So they do it 3 times and think, fuck it, or whatever. But there is a way with, like, I assume with what Jared's saying, you can set yourself up to decrease the probability of having any of these trade issues. And what I tell people is, I'm giving you a bulletproof vest. Put the fucking thing on. It doesn't mean you're not going to get a headshot and die. It doesn't mean you're not going to get your limb blown to bits. But what it means is, more likely than not, you're going to survive. You're not
Yeah.
going to die. And that's what matters. And to me, there's certain things we can all be doing. Like I said, the mindful trading that is that bulletproof vest that just makes everything a bit safer, lowers the risk of just about everything. And then from there, the stuff that still is a problem when you're trading mindfully, when you're trading, consciously and with perspective and in the zone, whatever the hell you want to call it, the errors that still occur when you're in that state, that's the shooting match. That's the real trading psychology stuff. And that's where, as a psychotherapist for so long, where I like to dig in and, take care of the issues, because the only problem might be that you never dealt with your father dying. The problem might be you never dealt with being bullied as a kid. And every time you're, trade and it goes wrong, you feel 15 years old, like you're being bullied, but you don't really realize that's how you feel because you're not thinking about it. You're only feeling the feeling, and then you feel like a shit, you lose the trade, and the cycle continues.
Totally.
But if you deal with the stuff that went on that put you in that position in the first place, you're less susceptible. Probabilities all increase that you will not be triggered. You will not have those reactions. So again, it's still playing probabilities.
That was what the Band-Aid thing was. What Jared said about
the Band-Aid.
Me saying that I quit drinking to help me with my trading, and he was like, "That's a Band-Aid." And then I later was like, I don't think it's because I have a real legit drinking problem. It's my dad died from drinking.
You're looking for
right.
Okay.
So I'm taking away that trigger, and I thought if I could quit drinking and focus enough on trading, if I could just devote my all to it, I could make it work. And he was like, if you want to continue not drinking, that's fine, but or you can deal with those issues.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that was super eye-opening as well.
I think that, Jared Tendler was a therapist, or is a therapist, right?
He's a coach.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you. I don't really know the difference between therapist, psychotherapy, psychology.
Yeah.
I don't really know. They all say psych in them is the only thing I know.
Yeah. I mean, I went to college for a long time, did a lot of training for a long time. I can't prescribe medication, but I'm licensed to practice psychotherapy in New York. I can bill insurance companies. My diagnoses are legal in a court, all that kind of stuff. I do expert testimony for car accident, PTSD, things like that. And been in practice for 18 years or so. Coaching, I mean, honestly, a lot of what coaching allows us to do is to not deal with so many rules and regulations. During COVID, they actually let us practice across state lines. Technically, I can't always practice across state lines as a psychotherapist with my license. However, trade psych coach is not what is a trade psych coach?
Right.
I can kind of, I hate to say I'm skirting it, but it just makes there's more flexibility. So I think Jared, I think he was a mental health counselor or a therapist of some kind. And the reason I bring it up is that no drinking thing, that could be a Band-Aid. It also might be something that's important to you to have a sense of agency over alcohol in your life, because alcohol took a lot away from you. There's just a zillion reasons why that could be a good thing. Is it going to help your trading? Maybe. But if it helps the quality of your life, then it definitely helps your trading.
Totally.
And that's the thing that a lot of traders miss, and why I think it's probably 95% of traders fail, is they're not addressing their brain health, their mental health at all, or to a very small degree. Some of the guys that are hardcore disciplined, working up at 5 a.m. and pumping iron, they do well because that kind of overlaps and bleeds into the mental health stuff. That's great for mental health, so they do all right. But we're not all like that. And for us that aren't, we have to treat our brains like, a athlete with their body or whatever. Not that we can't, we have to take care of our bodies too, but more so our cognitive functioning, our decision-making ability, because that's what gets screwed with intraday and causes us to lose money. Our decision-making ability gets skewed because we go into fight or flight or freeze. Our amygdala takes over. We don't have access to our wisdom and our knowledge, and our account is red.
So
that's a pattern that can be stopped.
What's the bulletproof vest then?
Check, ask your 5 times a day. Write this down, everybody. And people that know me are rolling their eyes right now because they've heard this 8,000 times. But once before the bell, then 5 times a day, you want to do the following 4 things. You want to check, you want to rate your emotionality on a scale of -5 to +5. I call it a feels scale. So, because either side of that is dangerous. Unlike most things, feeling good, really good in trading is just as dangerous as anything else.
Totally.
So we have to check where we're at on that scale. If we're a 4 or 5 on either end of it, don't trade. Period. Like, get up and go do something else. Go. Or go on to the next steps, which I would recommend. Step 2 is grounding. Grounding is it's a behavioral exercise where you do something to pull yourself out of your head and put yourself into the present moment. Bofo, if you were to look around the room you're in right now and tell me 5 colors that you see, would you say them out loud for me?
Gray, brown, green, white, orange.
Name 4 shapes that you see.
Oh gosh, shapes.
Yep.
Cylinder, box, rectangle. Square.
Right there, you're getting out of your head, literally focusing on what's around you, but you're still in the present moment. So that's grounding. Check your feel score, get yourself grounded. Then step 3 is practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is a huge topic. It's essentially learning how to live in the present moment more often. But where it's really related to mental health and trading is that when our thoughts are drifting into the future, in trading, that tends to be FOMO and hopium and things like that. In life, that tends to be worry, anxiety. How am I going to pay a bill? How am I going to get this done? Well, this project's due date, whatever. So that drifting into the future gives us anxiety, will create problems in life, create problems in trading. Then drifting into the past, trading wise, is usually like revenge trading, checking contracts you sold and they went up $1,000 and you're all pissed. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's the same thing as, whatever. It's just time traveling. It doesn't make any sense. So, learning to not do those things is what mindfulness is about. So this 3rd step is just a mindfulness exercise, which can be as simple as deep breathing and focusing on your breath and just getting more skilled at paying attention to the here and now. That actually makes a part of your brain thicker and denser called your anterior cingulate. It actually changes your brain structure. It makes your amygdala smaller, which is great. Both of those things are great. They're common phenomenon in Buddhists and marathon runners and yogis, and they're not that common in other people. So it's a good skill to build up. And then the 4th step is remind yourself of why you trade. Why are you doing this? Why have you chosen one of the hardest professions, one of the most difficult ways to make money? Why are you doing it? There's got to be reasons. And if you lose sight of them intraday, you can really get screwed. And I always say to people, you need to think about your values as a lighthouse. You're out at sea and storm gets rough. It's dark. Shit goes crazy, trades go sideways. You need to be able to look back to a reference point and get back to where you are, where Penny is, how Penny does things on her own damn way. You need to not lose sight of that. Why are you doing this? That helps with a lot of things. If I'm in a trade and have hopium, it's red, but there's whatever. There's hope. I I'm building up this case in my head, this rationalization. I'm less likely to bullshit myself like that if I'm thinking about the fact that for me, part of my goal with trading is to like build a family compound for everybody and, you know, have a place generationally for my family and stuff. If I'm thinking about that, I'm not going to do dumb shit. But it's really easy not to think about that intraday when I'm chasing SPY or whatever trade of the day, you know, whatever's going on. It's easy to lose sight of that because we want to, you know, we want to win, we want to get the money, we want to do whatever. And that's more, you know, can lead us down these paths of mistakes and FOMO and hopium. And just, if you're checking in with yourself, like I said earlier, 5 times a day, you got to do this. And, sorry, I'm digressing. When you're checking in like that, it just maintains that broad view. And like, I can cut this trade. There's a trade tomorrow. There's a trade in 10 minutes. And that becomes true versus some like thing we hear people say all the time, you know, just wait for the next trade. Like, no shit. But if we could actually do that, then we'd all be winning and the market would collapse. Like it's not how it works. You know, you can't just be disciplined or whatever. But these things make us more disciplined because if we don't, it's called ego dystonic. The behavior becomes ego dystonic. We don't like the behavior because all of a sudden hopium means I'm screwing over my family. I'm not going to do it. All of a sudden hopium means I'm taking money out of my kids' college fund. I'm going to sell the damn contract. And it could be that, it could be health. It could I don't care if it's for your Lamborghini. You know, it's when this stuff gets more baked in and you're more mindful of it and awake intraday and in touch with it, your decision making completely changes because all decisions that we make because we assume they're going to make us feel better in the future. All of them, every single one, every decision's emotional, every single one. That's and when we can build this into the recipe, when we can get those values and things that are important into that decision-making recipe, we're going to make more effective decisions in our life and then in trading and just simple things like cutting and taking profit because it bothers you that you don't do it in the moment versus, you know, 2 hours later when you're 20% down and, you know, you were 60% up before, which is when most people sell.
Interesting. So you're basically associating some bad habit with the negative side of your why. So then you have this like distaste for that bad habit over time.
Yes. If you are making it unappealing to do certain things because you're paying attention to consequences, which we never do. That's not true. We rarely do. And trading is one of the things that brings it out because consequences are instant and there's no other time really consequences are as instant as they are in trading. You know, I can be doing something wrong and not pay the price for hours or days or years. Trading, you pay the price instantly.
Right.
So yeah, that's why that stuff matters. And it just introduces and hopefully maintains, you know, more data to pull from to make decisions besides shit like TA, because TA is mostly coin tosses. You know?
Yeah.
When you're talking about like managing this fight, flight, freeze response, so like you kind of have these like tools to manage that, but like, isn't there part of this that, you know, someone might say you might just be oversizing? Like, let's not get to fight, flight, and freeze very much, if at all, you know?
No.
Okay.
No, you're right. And having a being hungry can put you into fight, flight, or freeze. Like the things that put us into fight, flight, or freeze are so minor. And that's why kind of knowing evolutionary psychology is really important because, you know, it used to be threats to life that put us into fight, flight, or freeze, threats to safety. And here's where the parallels are really important. So safety can be literal, you know, like not getting hurt or bothered or robbed or whatever. And safety can be more existential, like emotional safety and privacy and boundaries and things like that. So anything that's a threat to a sense of safety will put us into fight, flight, or freeze. And guess what is one of the biggest parts of safety in the modern world? Certainly in the,
money.
Exactly.
Totally.
So every time I trade, I am gambling my safety. And that's why we go into fight, flight, or freeze. There's no not going into fight, flight, or freeze. And I do this. I honestly, 5 times a day, I recommend there's a random alarm. It goes off between 9:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. randomly 5 times every day. And I do those steps. And am I this perfect trader? No. Am I consistently profitable? Yep. And the less I trade and the more I do this stuff, the more money I tend to make. And I've found the same for my my clients too. It's because you get more conviction and have more comfort, and you're just objectively taking trades or not taking trades. I think a lot of the reason I make more money is because days like today, I did buy one contract today, but I was like, screw this. What am I doing? Let's do something else. And what I did is I went and did something with a friend of mine, which is in touch with my values of relationships, of and being able to do shit like that. I've had jobs where I couldn't just leave and go out to lunch. I had clients booked all day or whatever. And I think that one thing traders don't do is take advantage of the trader lifestyle, and that's part of trading less. Go do something. Get the hell out of the house, or go play video games, whatever you're into. I don't care. But that piece needs to be introduced way more than it is for most traders. Most of them are sitting in front of the computer all damn day and not budging, and that's got to stop.
Yeah.
Is that so I'm at conflict with this particular issue because I do this, and like part of it I always wonder to myself, like, is this an addiction? How much of this is an addiction,
Sure.
But part of it is you're talking about doing what you love to do. Like, my best friends do this with me, and we're talking on voice every day. I love to do this,
Yeah.
So that's important, because what trumps it all, what supersedes all of it, values. If that does change things, because you are living your life, you're experiencing your relationships, all that stuff. So that does change what I'm saying, in the sense that your values are sort of integrated because of the way you trade and the way you're making money. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's so interesting. I was talking to my friend AC earlier, and I was just like, I'm just sort of down because like my trading's not going well, and my whole life kind of hinges on that. Not my family life, but like, the better my trading goes, the better the podcast goes. The more confident I feel about the podcast, the more confident I feel about sort of like everything. And he was like, well, you don't have to tell people how you're trading. Like, the podcast is very separate. But in my mind, I'm like, it's not, because I built the podcast on being honest. And like, so, and if my main value, other than being a good mom, which I think is my top value, and I started trading to make money to take my kids to Disney World. That was my whole why.
Awesome.
Which I hadn't gotten there yet, but I am gonna book a trip to Disney this month, even though I can't pay for it yet, because I'm going to like manifest it. I'm working on manifesting this trip. I gotta go.
Gotcha.
Anyway, but other than being a mom, if my whole value system is having a voice, and that's what's important to me, then like trading is very much at the core of that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have so much riding on it. And I a lot of times wish that the podcast was separated from it, so that I could be like very, very proud of the podcast, which I am, but not have it kind of drawn down because of my own trading execution.
Why is it drawn down because of your trading execution? Or what way what way is it drawn down?
I think I just don't want to let people down. Like, I have thousands of people now who I have made them invested in my journey. I did that to me. but I don't want people to have invested all these hundreds of hours and then be like, I couldn't do it. Whoops.
How is that affecting your trading?
I mean, it's not good. Like, I feel like I put a lot on my shoulders.
That's probably forcing some sympathetic nervous system responses into your day. Having that pressure, or when you become conscious of it. So that's something, another reason to, do these steps, put on that bulletproof vest. Again, might not save your life, but it's going to make things better.
Being grounded, I've heard that you can like sit on the ground to do that too. Is that true?
I don't know. I'm pretty evidence-based. My main treatments that I use are something called EMDR. There's probably nothing with more evidence of how it works. That grounding thing, I think people call that earthing too. It certainly couldn't hurt. And the thing is, if you like that, then yeah, it's probably grounding.
Yeah.
Do I know for sure that walking barefoot on the earth means I connect to the earth and electricity goes out the bottom of my feet? And I have no idea. I mean, Don't get me wrong. My father has a thing that he does that stuff. He has a thing that's plugged into the freaking grounding outlet in his house, and it's a pad, and he sleeps on top of it. That's he swears by.
Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm kind of like, but who am I to say? I don't know.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't discourage anybody from anything like that, and especially if it's meaningful to them.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, we're coming to the end of our time. I would like to invite you back on for a part 2. I've never, ever invited somebody on for a part 2 immediately after, but I would love to make it a 2-part series if you want.
That'd be great.
Cool.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think this is the one. Bofo, what do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I think there's so much to dig into here, and I think it really aligns with so much that we talk about anyways, so I'd love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Maybe we could do that on Monday.
Okay.
Or sometime next week and then release them together.
I can do that.
Yeah,
Cool.
that'd be great.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I would just continue it now, but I have to meet with a sponsor. But I legitimately could keep talking to you for like 4 more hours. So
I appreciate it. It was fun. It's funny. Time went by so fast. I feel like I don't even know what I said.
Well, we got more time to dig into it.
I never know what I'm saying either.
It's such a weird thing. I'm yeah.
It was awesome. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you very
much.
much.
We'll see you on part 2.
All right, guys. Take care.
By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the Penny Lane podcast makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional or financial advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, the Penny Lane podcast does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. The third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of the Penny Lane podcast. The Penny Lane podcast assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast, or the compliance with applicable laws of such materials and/or links referenced herein.